So welcome to the basement, which is primarily used for a little bit of exercise, watching a movie, and throwing a lot of darts. There's one problem, because every time I throw, I have to look at this thing. All right, as ugly and as boring as this thing is, it does serve a purpose. Behind here is the water main, but we can make use of all this space here. Behind here is just air, so why don't we make it usable? All right, one of the cool things about having the old cabinet here is I can just draw on it and get an idea of what we'd like in the new piece. What if we have maybe 4 small drawers? Here's the access panel, so we can't go there. And then we throw in a shelf to throw some things. And what if I added a long, narrow drawer to store the darts? I think that could look really cool, pulling it out, seeing the dart collection all laid out. I think that could look really cool. All right, here's our old cabinet. Some beautiful old world construction made by some drunk guy in 1970 something. All right, now we're going to install our table saw blade that is ground for dovetail making. It's a neat little trick where they grind the teeth at 9.5 degrees, whatever angle you want, and you tilt the table saw blade to match that angle, and when it cuts, it leaves a flat bottom. So we're going to use this to cut the tails, and then we'll cut the pins by hand. Now it's important when you get ready to change a blade, you turn off the machine, unplug it, remove the circuit breaker from the box, and call your utility company to turn off power to the house. We don't want any accidents. Boop. Now I'm gonna tilt the blade 9.5 degrees. Boom. And we'll do some testing to make sure the blade is flat. Getting ready to cut our dados, which could always be a little bit stressful, but not with this jig. It's just some plywood screwed together. This is the exact width of our DeWalt trim router. And this notch here was made by this 1/4 inch upcut spiral bit. So we just have to line up this notch with our lines, and we know we're going to be spot on. And because the router is locked in place, we don't have to worry about side to side play. Great jig, and let's see it in action. With the partition size, now we could start getting this guy ready for glue up. What we're gonna do, we're gonna take it apart for the 400th time. We are going to steam out any dents. We're gonna get rid of all our pencil marks. We're gonna sand to 400, and then we're gonna start applying the finish to the interior parts. Then after that, we can glue it up, and this thing will really start looking like a cabinet. I'm excited. Let's get to it. We talked about pre-finishing beforehand. Now with a cabinet, all those right angles and nooks and crannies, you don't want to have to get in there after the case is built. It's just a nightmare. So do as much as you can before you glue it up. This is 3 coats of Osmo top oil, sanded to 400 beforehand, and applied with a white Scotch-Brite pad. It's really a foolproof finish. It's got a beautiful warm glow to it. Super easy to apply. It's pretty much the only finish I use now. I'll use shellac for certain parts, drawer parts I'll use that for. But this really has become my go-to finish for the past 4 or 5 years. All right, I think now we are ready for the glue up. With the shiplap cut We are now up to the drawers. We're not going to attach the shiplap now because it'll just get in the way of the drawer fitting process. You know, we're near the finish line. We have the drawers, we have the top, and the veneered panel. Not much more to go. Another 8 to 16 months and we'll be done. Time to tackle the drawers, which is going to be a lot of fun because we have this piece here, which is I'm hoping is just perfect because this is all rift sawn material in this section of the board. So I'm going to use it here. It'll be nice and stable. This is a long drawer. If that thing twists, it's going to bind. So I want every advantage I can get into construction in terms of stability. Then we'll use this flat sawn material in this part of the board for these 4 individual drawer pockets. And I think it's gonna look really cool because you'll have the grain, you know, the grain is a little crazier flowing from one to the other. All right, let's get to it. All right, so I'm really happy with this. We got the nice continuous grain going across. Next up, I got to mill some maple for the sides, back, and bottoms. Then I could actually dovetail everything together. Okay, working on the top drawer. This is the wide, narrow drawer. Dovetails are cut for the front, the blind dovetails, half blind. The rear of the drawer, I need to cut to width. Before I do that, I got to make my groove for the drawer bottom. That way I know how much to cut off the back. The drawer bottom is going to be 1/4 inch MDF. And unlike plywood, 1/4 inch MDF is actually 1/4 of an inch. It's going to be lined with leather, fake leather, and I'm measuring it, and it's 1/16 of an inch. So I'm going to do a test cut with a 5/16 inch groove. We'll see how that slides in, and then I'll cut my groove, cut the back, do my through dovetails in the rear, adhere the leather, fake leather, to the MDF, and I think that's enough. All right, I took it out from the press that we made. What we're going to do now is trim away the excess fabric. We're using a fabric cutter, much better than a X-Acto knife or scissors. It's essentially like a pizza wheel. Just make sure you only use it on fabric and try to use it with one of those self-healing mats. So I'm just going to cut away the excess, and then we'll give it a test fit. And one thing I noticed, I only put the fabric on one side, and I definitely introduced a bow to the MDF. Hopefully, when I slip it in the groove, it'll self-correct. Let's see what happens. And we're in. And it looks good. Of course, I knew that already because I test fitted it off camera the first time around, because I wouldn't want to be embarrassed in front of millions of people, or a dozen. Looks good. All right, we're really starting to button this project up, and which makes me happy because while I loved working on it, you reach that point in the project where you're kind of sick of looking at it. So now I could attach the top to the cabinet. And then when that's attached, I could then attach the shiplap because I don't have to reach in there anymore. After that, the only thing left is the veneered panel. Then we're done. So let me get this on and so we can get this thing out of here. Well, there, 2 feet over. Here is a close-up of the edge treatment we wound up doing. This was done with a fingernail bit on the bottom and a 60-degree chamfer on the top. I really like the way it looks. I also like the slight curve on either end. Softens things up a bit. All right, so we're going to attach that through the bottom with some screws. And last minute design decision, we're floating the top. I think it complements the floating on the base nicely, and I was just fooling around and put it up and wound up really liking it, so I'm going to keep it. I really like the way the brass knobs look against the cherry. I'm not a big fan of wood hardware. Wooden knobs, they just feel a little old-fashioned to me. So I really like the way that looks. These are sold as piano knobs on Amazon. Got a package of 8, so I have a couple left over. So my next video, I'll be building a couple of pianos. Maybe a cutting board. Now for a beer. So 2 months and about 100 hours or so later, and we're finally done. We covered up the water main, we added some storage, we added some room to display some things, and I really think it helps make this basement room feel a bit more polished. I had a great time building this thing. I hope you enjoyed following along. Any questions, comments, criticisms, whatever, put it down below and I'll gladly respond to them. Thank you so much, and we'll see you in the next video.